Is it a good idea to transfer a final salary pension? Okay, everyone's situation is different, and for some people it might be a fantastic idea. For other people it might be a very bad idea. For some people in the middle it might be a bit of a mixture of both. But we need to start off. If you ask my opinion, I say the FCA and the pensions regulator are probably the best people to think of in terms of an opinion for a majority. And as we know from everything that's written online, the FCA and the pensions regulator do not think it's in the best interest for the majority of people to transfer that pension. That means the majority of you should not transfer your final salary pension. Okay, so why are so many people still transferring their pensions, and why are so many people still going through advice processes? Obviously, there's a lot of people who aren't going through advice processes as well. But we have to understand that really, as I said at the beginning, it comes down to people's individual circumstances. Okay, so let's start off with the negative, all right? Why would you not transfer your final salary pension? What is so valuable about it? Well, number one, you don't have to do anything. You do absolutely nothing in terms of managing that pension pot, and it will grow guaranteed for life. I guess that's point two. It will grow guaranteed for life no matter what happens in the markets and no matter what you do. You will have to do no research. You will have to pay no ongoing advice fees to anyone. It is all being paid for automatically by your employer as part of the final salary scheme. The point on it being indexation linked and inflation linked, etc., is really important. Now, again, every single scheme is different. I must have dealt with over 100 DB schemes in the UK. Each of them have slightly different indexation and inflation factors. Some of them use IPI, some of them use CPI, some of them have a cap, some of them don't. But your pension pot is guaranteed to grow, okay? Now, that means, say the markets are flat for the next 10 years, the S&P 500 stays at circa 5,000, nothing changes. The FTSE stays where it is, nothing changes for 10 years. It doesn't matter. Your seeding scheme in the UK will still continue to grow in terms of the annual payment that they'll be making to you. A little bit like how the state pension in the UK is triple locked, as they refer to it. Your pension, your defined benefit pension, is even more than triple locked. It's very, very secure. So that's the biggest reason that obviously a lot of people want to maintain that asset. That obviously then leads on to the other point, that it creates a lot of certainty. You will know guaranteed from your normal retirement date or normal retirement age, NRA or NRD as they call them, the seeding schemes, you will know guaranteed how much money you're going to get per annum for the rest of your life. And obviously that amount will go up with indexation. So very, very strong and compelling reasons why it might often not be suitable for you to complete a transfer out. Now, some of you might switch off there, done. For everyone else, I'm now going to go through some of the areas that you may want to still consider completing a pension transfer, or some of the possible advantages. Now, obviously, I must clarify, here at Cameron James, all pension transfer inquiries are dealt with our third-party independent pension transfer specialist to ensure that you get the correct suitability advice in line with legislation in the UK. So number one, flexibility. Now, flexibility is a word that pension transfer specialists often hate to hear, because people think, oh, I just like to have flexibility so I can draw down my pension whenever I want. Okay, that's not potentially going to be great financial planning, and could actually be very detrimental to a lot of people's financial planning. However, say you have a £500,000 pension pot, okay? And you're going to be promised your annual pension from the scheme. Now, that annual pension from the scheme at your normal retirement date is obviously fantastic, and you know that it's guaranteed and it will grow, etc. But it's not going to change your life. You can't do what you want to do with your money now by staying inside your seeding scheme. Say, for example, you're 55, you want to retire. You haven't seen much of the kids or the grandkids or whatever it is. You want to retire early. You could afford to retire early if you transferred your final salary scheme into a SIP, and then you started taking drawdown from the pension pot. Maybe you have other assets to rely on later in life, or whatever it might be. That could be an instance where potentially you have personal rationale that you would like to do something inside a SIP that you cannot do inside your final salary scheme. Obviously, there's other pensions that you could use instead of a SIP, but normally times in the UK, the majority of clients' most suitable advice is a SIP. So that's a very good example. Secondly, it might be from an inheritance perspective, okay? Now, a lot of people, as we know, you have 50% of your annual pension will be paid to your spouse, guaranteed. Sometimes 25%, depending upon your beneficiaries, in school, out school, etc., etc. But a lot of people say, well, that's very generous for my scheme. And again, I understand it's going to be guaranteed to grow, but I would like the flexibility of my partner, wife, husband, kids receiving 100% of my money in the event of my death. Now, some people might not even be married anymore. I might not have an official spouse. maybe there isn't anyone who that 50% can go to. Maybe they have no one in the world, or maybe they don't want their kids to potentially have to go through all this discretion stuff with the trustee to have anything from the pension pot. They want to know guaranteed that their family is going to receive the full amount of that money. Now, as I said a million times before on the channel, a good pension transfer specialist would argue, yeah, but if you're worried about inheritance, just buy a life policy. Just buy life insurance to match the difference between what your family would get or what your spouse would get versus what they would get from a SIPP at the beginning. But I can tell you now, a lot of clients don't like the idea of paying for a pretty expensive annual premium for insurance to cover something which in their eyes they think they can achieve through a SIPP. Again, might not technically be good financial planning advice from a pension transfer specialist perspective, but that is what a lot of clients often say. The other reasons you might want to consider transfer out is to have more flexibility over the investment portfolio. Now, as mentioned, inside a DB scheme, one of the big advantages is you don't have to do anything. You do absolutely nothing. But you have to remember, inside your final salary scheme, everyone is treated the same. So whether you're cautious, balanced, adventurous, or anywhere in between, everyone's money is invested the same and you're going to get the same return. Someone who has an adventurous risk profile or a balanced adventurous risk profile might say, actually, I've seen what the equity returns are over the past 20, 30, 40 years. I would like to buy a low cost, simple portfolio. Maybe they want to buy an actively managed portfolio to try to outperform the market, or if they're buying a passive, just to perform the market and collect the rate of return which they think they can get. Obviously, past performance is no guide to future performance though, and your DB scheme is guaranteed. It will grow day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. Your SIPP or whatever solution you use is not guaranteed to grow. I hope this has been a bit of a useful video in terms of some of the summaries. Get in touch below via the Calendly link to have a conversation with myself or one of our senior financial advisors to understand your situation in more detail and to begin understanding information from your seeding scheme, such as your CTV, scheme factors, late, early retirement. There's a lot of information that needs to go to the pension transfer specialist in order for them to ascertain the suitability of your advice. And as always, take care of UK pension assets.